I'm Richard Porter.
I'm Jonny Smith.
And this is On the Other Side of Things, the Smith & Sniff spin-off in which we answer your questions. Okay. Back for another Friday. In the last main podcast, I promised a question which related to something we were talking about. Brian May's XJS costing more to maintain than it's worth. And uncannily, this sort of syncs up with a question from a listener called Matteo. Now, Matteo is the chap who asked about who controlled and dictated the temperature.
Smith & Sniff podcast.
No, this is when I did the Top Gear questions a few weeks ago on my own.
Yeah.
Matteo asked about whether James May controlled the thermostat in the Top Gear office with a rod of iron. But he's come back with another question. He says, a petrolhead friend and I were discussing a Lancia Thema 832 listed on Bring a Trailer with a very low mileage, remarking that it would likely go for cheap, but then cost almost as much annually in maintenance in spite of the low mileage. From this, I coined the term 6.9 syndrome after the illustrious Mercedes 450 SEL 6.9, although in fairness, the 300 SEL 6.3 would probably also fit. So, on that side of things, my question to you both is, what are some other prime examples that come to mind of cars exhibiting 6.9 syndrome?
Well, that's a tough one. I mean, I would gravitate towards Italian, but...
Yes, I was I was about to say almost any earlier Maserati Quattroporte.
Oh, what? Where the value of the car is immediately eclipsed by the
running costs? Yes,
just immediately.
I mean, yes, instantly. In fact, because that's the thing, it would have to kick off in the manner that it would continue. So, say you bought an old Quattroporte for, what would they be? I don't know.
How old are we talking? Are we talking 90s Quattroporte or 80s?
Oh, yes, but I'm thinking actually a Quattroporte 1.
Yeah.
And you buy it for, let's say, £12,000 at an auction.
An auction, you say?
And it doesn't feel like it's running quite right. So you take it to a specialist and they immediately tell you that it's going to need £18,000 worth of work. And there you go, you're off. 6.9 syndrome is rolling.
I'll counter that with a British offering.
Yeah.
I'm going to say cheap Rolls Shadow.
Oh, yes.
Might have done the wedding circuit.
Yeah.
And talking of circuits, the brake circuit is not behaving. And the brakes on those cars are not just hideously complicated, but when they go, like everything else goes, and also your life potentially goes if you're driving it.
Yes.
And you can still pick those slightly seedy shads up for $3-4 grand, I believe.
Yeah.
I haven't looked. Might want to ask Harry Metcalf, I don't know. So I'm going to say if you buy a 3 to 4K shad,
yeah,
you are wading in to a lake in a rainforest, having not read any of the notices which says things like piranhas definitely live here. You've rolled your trousers up like a British tourist. You're like, no, rolling your trousers up is going to do nothing. You are going to get taken down into the deep by something. And it will be a master cylinder that costs 1,800 quid, and then you add labour and then all the other ancillaries. And sure enough, your Rolls Shadow that actually looks a bit shit as well is suddenly 3 times more expensive.
The shad's a funny one, isn't it? Because it could go either way on parts like that. Fuel pump, either it'll turn out to be off a Cortina, and it just uses 3 of them, or it'll turn out it's made bespoke by a man in those, mini binocular jeweler's glasses in a back street in Birmingham, and he can only make one every 8 months.
Yes.
And it's $9 grand.
Yes.
You just don't know until you find out the hard way by having to write a check.
Up until recently, probably an Aston Lagonda was in that camp as well, because the values of those were low for years. And the complexity was obviously high.
But that's a really good one, actually, the Gonda. And the thing is, they've not got cheaper to run, have they? They've just become more valuable for some reason or other.
Yeah.
Because that guy, Roger Dudding, just keeps buying them all.
He has got them all. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love
I think
one.
it would actually depress the values. I kind of would as well. Ripe, if they weren't so valuable, for an EV conversion, because then you get that fabulous sort of retro-futurist look, but hopefully you could simplify some of the aggro by having a Tesla Model S or something underneath.
I would love that. I think that would be up there with the sort of top 5 EV converted classics that you'd actually get in and use. Yeah.
Because I know people would go, oh, but the V8, you can't get rid of the V8. It's just, but you can get rid of an enormous amount of stress in your life, which would allow you to use the car. And that would be by binning off the shonky 70s bits that they couldn't afford to develop properly.
Exactly. And let's face it, you're not buying that car to put a loud exhaust on it and really ring it through gears or anything.
No, I'd find it sacrilegious to take the V8 out of a 70s or 80s Aston saloon, as they call them, the coupes, or a Vantage, but because they should be a little bit noisy and
spicy.
But yeah, the Gonda's meant to be a luxury saloon, so we just make it nice and quiet. One final one I think I would chuck in related to Matteo's question about 6.9 syndrome, Citroen SM.
Oh gosh, did I tell you that I nearly bought one of those this summer?
No.
I don't think I told anybody. I think.
Hang on, nearly bought though.
Oh, like speaking to the owner several times, like really got to the point where I'm like, this will be fine. I've asked all the right questions. I've seen loads of pictures. I think this is going to be fine. And then I spoke to a friend of mine who probably is the voice of reason. He went, he said, no, don't take this the wrong way, but he said, you've got a lot of cars already, and I don't know if you've got enough money to live with this beyond buying it. And I like that. You've got to live with it.
Can I ask how much it was?
It was 21,000 euros.
Ooh.
It was an Italian original car that had lived in the Netherlands since the 80s. And it had begun to, I looked him up, like the dude in the Netherlands who is the god for SM related stuff and Maserati stuff, and had all of the really expensive things done. And it had been used as well and stored well. So it's not like it had just sat doing nothing.
Okay.
And I just thought to myself, under 20 grand, beautiful car, will always be cool, but lots of people fear them. Shall I just do it? I actually was going to say to you, should I do it? And then you and I book a Brian Air flight and just go and get it.
I thought you were going to say to me, could this be the second Smith & Sniff fleet car after the Eagle?
And you'd go, absolutely not.
Because the one defining characteristic of a Smith & Sniff fleet car is that it has to be in some way completely impractical. So we have an impractically long car. Now let's have an impractically unreliable car.
And what a fleet it is.
What a fleet.
Yeah.
Sort of tiny part of me regrets that you didn't suggest that. On
it
this
might still
note,
be for sale, Rich. I haven't actually checked.
Yeah, okay, I don't regret it that much. He says, backpedaling furiously. A question from Richard Sanderson, who is one of our patrons, which is relevant to what we were just saying. He says, hello, Jonny, USSG. Do you have any updates on your Matra Rancho, please?
No. No, I don't. Do you want to know the reason why you haven't seen it on the Late Break Show? It's because I still haven't even gone to collect it. So
we were supposed to go and get it together, weren't we?
Yeah.
Forgotten about that.
Well, there we go, you see.
Are we doing that?
Pack your lunchbox. We're going.
Yeah.
I need
it's
to go
in
and get
Cornwall,
it.
though, isn't it?
Yes, it's in Cornwall, which is why it's not been one of those cars I can just pop out and get. So
There's no such thing as popping to Cornwall.
No, and I am looking forward to getting it, and there are things in place with its resurrection, plans for its resurrection. I just haven't started yet. In fact, it is going to start this autumn/winter. So, don't look. I promise. When there's an update, I will give you it. I haven't not bought it. I have bought it. Okay, money exchanged. It's a
I have
thing.
bought it. Don't go spreading rumours around town that I haven't bought it.
Well, actually, to that end, someone at Festival of the Unexceptional came up to me and said, hey, we found a Matra Rancho parked on someone's driveway, and we actually knocked on the door, and an old lady came to the door and she said, yes, it's mine. I've had it many, many, many years. I'm thinking it's probably time to get rid of it because it's been off the road for X years. It's a green one, I think. And it actually looked better than the one I bought, and I got a little bit annoyed and thought, shit, shall I buy another one? And those guys who I spoke to said, oh, we'll send you the details if you want, or we'll give you, and they never have, and I don't know their names, and I don't know how to get in touch with them, and I'd love to.
Oh, no.
'Cause half of me thinks I'm quite happy to buy two and then get them together and go, which one's actually better, and then sell the one to a weak at the knees listener to be saved, and I do the other one.
If they're both okay, we could just have one each.
Yeah, well, we just talked about exceedingly unreliable cars. Why don't we just rotate them like crops? So when one shits itself, you just get the other one out.
It's okay, get the other Rancho.
Yeah.
This is not a question, it's just a follow-up from a previous question. You remember a listener whose name I still haven't fully got a handle on, Ethan. Let's go with that.
Yeah, sweet
Welsh.
Welsh.
The chap who had this lusting after a Golf van on eBay.
Oh, yeah.
And was sort of asking for our guidance because clearly he didn't really need the Golf van, but he really wanted the Golf van.
Well,
and I think, did we help him? I don't think we did. Do we ever? But
we propagated.
What we did, by talking about it, we then received that lovely offer from someone who offered to transport it for free from Aylesbury, where it was, to Cardiff, where Ethan is a student. So I passed this offer on to him, and he's replied saying, unfortunately, I can't find the eBay advert for the Golf van anywhere.
Oh,
Nothing
what?
even says that the auction has ended or who won.
No.
The ad has vanished from my watch list and liked items, as well as from the eBay app altogether.
No.
Gutted isn't even the word.
Well, the chap that offered to transport it is a bloke called Lewis Freemans. And Lewis, weirdly, is the guy, the SSG, I might add, who's going to collect, possibly, the Rancho from Cornwall. So that ties it in nicely, because he contacted me and said, hey, I go to Cornwall quite a lot. I'm quite happy to fetch that car that you've bought that you possibly didn't need. And I went, oh, that would be amazing. Maybe I'll rendezvous with you, or I'll come down with you and I'll film it. So Lewis is a wonderful, sweet guy.
Well, that's a bona fide SSG. Ethan does say in his follow-up email, P.S. Any Mark III Golf vans that you or Johnny spot for sale, let me know. Well, I think we can expand this to our listenership as well. If you do, I don't know why we've suddenly turned ourselves into a matchmaker, but I feel like we should serve some useful purpose for once. So yes, if anyone out there spots a Mark III Golf van, not just any Mark III Golf, got to be a van, for sale, then please do get in touch. We will pass it on to Ethan and in some way feel like we're kind of going, if anyone's got any heroin for sale, we'll pass it on. We're just going to make his life slightly less convenient and or good, but
angel dust, is angel dust a drug these days? I remember it being, I remember hearing about it when I was at school.
Yeah, there's a really good New Order song called Angel Dust from the Brotherhood album.
Okay.
And when I first heard it, I didn't know what angel dust was, but I sort of assumed that it was probably something to do with drugs because it was 80s New Order, and I didn't imagine they were just writing a song. Angel Dust sounds like it might be like fairy dust. Oh, sprinkle some magic on this.
Exactly.
I don't even know what angel dust is.
I don't. That's the problem. I don't know either.
I was going to say, is it like PCP, but not as in...
What, as in like...
It is. It's a PCP, not the kind of way that you...
So do you get deals that you say, look, I really want a Hyundai Ioniq 6, 3 years, balloon payment, blah, blah, blah. It goes, well, if you do it through Angel Dust, you'll be able to put down, it's 12 quid a month, but you've got to put a deposit down of, 26,000 quid. What? A deposit of 26,000 quid? Yeah, but it's 12 quid a month, so it's fine. Right, okay. I'm not sure this is working. Angel dust.
Anyway,
yeah, better than anal dust, I
well,
would have thought, which is what,
yes.
I don't know, parping that powder from dry roast peanuts at the bottom of the bag.
Do ruin the dust at the bottom of dry roasted peanut bags. It's one of my favourite things.
It is great. It is great.
Anyway, well, it says PCP is a dangerous and illegal hallucinogen that can have devastating consequences. So, just remember that before you sign up.
Sounds like a Lancia Thema at 8:32.
Yes.
Well, I've got a letter here. Hello, you lovely, lovely, sweet, sweet, leafy guys. Thank you. I own a Clio 172. Recently, I needed to change the tyres as they were down to the wires after a track day. After completing one side, I needed to move the car to the other side of the driveway to complete the other. Simple task, you might think. No. After a few turns of the key, cranks would happen and the car would die. After some home diagnostics and many, many forum scours, I realised I was going to need an adult to come in. The car got trailered to a local and reputable auto electrician, presumably one that does stop talking. And fast forward 2 weeks, and he's still talking. No, fast forward 2 weeks and no news about the Clio. I was getting a bit worried. I gave him a call and he said, in the 25 years of doing this job, he'd only been defeated once by a Kangoo, which was doing similar things as my SSC, Sweet Sweet Clio. My question to you both is this. Have you ever taken a car to a garage and it's absolutely stumped them to the point where they just don't know the root of the issue? And if so, what was the eventual outcome? I'm fearing I might need to change the ECU, the ignition barrel, the door lock, the fuel filler cap locked in with key, and other keys. What a massive and costly faff to just change the sodding wheels. Love the podcast. All the best. Adam Ruse. Well, I know I mentioned it many podcasts ago. My mum and dad had a Volvo 850 T5.
Oh, yeah.
And it used to make the strangest of noises when you were cornering at certain speeds, and my dad would regularly take it to the garage and jack it up and check the anti-roll bar bushes, suspension, all sorts of stuff on the chassis. And I probably told you this, that the outcome was that the previous owner was a golfer and a golf ball had rolled in off the back seat floor into one of those floor air vents.
Oh, yeah.
And then gone into all of the chambers under the seats. So at certain angles, depending on where the ball was, it's like one of those games that you play as a kid.
Yeah. Little maze game, yeah.
Yeah, and it used to completely fox my dad. And I drove it a number of times, and we were both like, what the hell is this? It doesn't make sense. And it turns out, yeah, that one guy in the garage went, it's something in the air ventilation, it has to be. And sure enough, it was a golf ball.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, it took...
That's amazing.
3
Did they
years.
have to go out with, like, one of them lying on the floor and the other one driving to get to the bottom of this? Because otherwise...
Or driving it with your hand down on the floor under the seat area, just feeling around to feel if you could hear clacking or banging.
Yeah.
It was really weird.
Wow.
And it didn't follow a pattern,
is-
of course.
But incredibly specific. I mean, just has
so
that
weird.
ever happened to anybody in history?
Well, I'm sure our listeners are cool people. I'm sure there's been other stories.
Yeah.
Maybe involving balls. I don't know.
Or animals.
Animals.
Stuck in cars and things like that.
Oh, that happens.
I don't have anything as good as that, so we'll move on
Well,
to
your
a
Fiat
question
Panda,
from...
I mean,
Oh,
you
well,
don't like to
I
talk
mean,
about, but that had some
it was
issues.
the one that caused me just the sort of general sagging of the shoulders is when the new engine went in and then they couldn't get it started.
Yeah, that was
And
sad.
that baffled them for quite a while until they realised that the wiring loom had just been nicked, they think, by one of the straps that held it to the pallet that it was shipped on.
Yeah. Yep.
Just nicked the wiring enough to cause a short or a lack of currents to function correctly. But it took them a long time to get to the bottom of that one. Sigh.
I've had it before. I've replaced 3 starter motors on a car before, and then I realised that the main earth on the car looked perfect, but it wasn't quite anchored to a clean bit of metal.
Oh.
So the starter would either not work or be incredibly slow to the point where you'd put another battery on the car. And it was in the early days of my knowledge, and goodness me, I got stranded in that car so many times. It pissed me right off. But now I know. You've got to make sure your terminals are shiny and lubed.
Wise words.
Yeah.
Moving on to a listener called Phil Webb, who says, hello, you fine pair of SSGs.
It's becoming a thing, isn't it? It's becoming a thing.
Phil has a story to start. He says, walking into town, I approached a crossroads. As I stopped to cross the road, a first-generation Honda Jazz, the colour of Johnny's faded shorts.
Holiday shorts colour.
Your red holiday shorts. This car appeared and indicated to turn left. I noticed the elderly occupants had a KFC bargain bucket on the go. The passenger had the bucket and was happily enjoying his chicken, but the driver was also tucking into a drumstick.
Oh, wow.
She dialed in a little, but as it turned out, not enough, left-hand lock and accelerated out of the T-junction. Both hands were holding the greasy chicken, though, and not the steering wheel.
What?
Fucking hell. This resulted in the steering straightening up and her clouting the curb on the opposite side of the road.
No, in a Honda Jazz.
In a Honda Jazz. Greasy hands and pieces of chicken flew about the cabin. And clearly panicked, she dialed in more left-hand lock, which then resulted in her clouting the curb on the left-hand side of the road.
No way.
And coming to a stop. She basically pinballed her way out of a junction.
Oh, that's track rod ends just dead.
Isn't it? That's just...
The tracking will look like Homer Simpson's eyes.
And maybe just take a little thumbnail out of a rim as well.
Oh, gosh.
Noise. Terrible.
Do you think this was auto and she just clouted the auto down so it was singing?
I bet it was auto. Oh, well, actually, no, because Phil ends by saying her husband appeared to take the chicken from her hand, and in a haze of burnt clutch, she was back on her way, managing this time to keep the car straight.
Oh, gosh.
So my question for you two is, have you ever had any food and driving related incidents?
Oh, loads.
Well, you infamously almost got into Spanish prison for throwing a sandwich out of a car, didn't you?
It was only a piece of a sandwich, not a whole one.
A piece of a sandwich, beg your pardon.
But yes, badly timed. I think I dropped a bit of tuna sandwich. Terrible idea to eat a tuna sandwich whilst driving. A really awful idea. Yeah. And it went down the gap between the handbrake and the seat. And I thought, if I don't get that out immediately, I will forget, and that will be it. The car will be written off in a week. But as I did it, I had to look down a bit more than I usually would, and I went onto the rumble strip of the road, and I went over one of those huge pieces of lorry tyre that kind of that shed and come off and explode. And they're big. They're really big. So I went over that, and it made a hell of a noise, which made me kind of overcorrect a bit more because I'm still trying to fish out the fishy sandwich, which is a little bit annoying. So, yeah, I've had that. I'd tell you what I used to do. When I used to keep a lot of, talking of fish, when I used to keep a lot of aquarium fish, I used to drive back when I was collecting live fish from the aquarium shop, and I had to drive extra carefully. But I'd often strap them in like into the seat in a carrier. And I'd always look over and check that they were all right, which was a distraction. And I remember once pulling over to get some petrol because I hadn't quite factored in that I needed some fuel, and then the pissing car wouldn't start. So I had live fish in the seat, on the seat, and you've got to keep temperature as stable as possible because they're ornamental fish. And I was getting quite stressed out. I had to like get under the bonnet and dick around with the car. I can't remember. I think it was a rotor arm issue because it was a crap car. So yeah, I've had a few. I can't think of any food and driving ones. I did in the early 2000s. My girlfriend at the time had a brand new Polo as a company car. As a company car?
Yeah, because she didn't actually need a car for doing her job. It was just a perk. And you could have, she worked in recruitment, and you could have a BMW 3 Series compact or a Polo.
Okay.
And of course, a lot of the recruitment people, because they were, recruitment people, they went for the BMW because it was a bit flash relatively.
Yeah.
And I said to my girlfriend, they're shit, those compacts. Just get the Polo. And she was like, yeah, you're right, because it actually saved me a load of tax because it's a cheaper car, so I won't pay as much, benefit in kind. But also, it was a brand new car, but this is also the early 2000s, and I used to smoke. Don't do it, bad for your kids.
Terrible.
And I was once driving round hanger lane gyratory system, people would know, in London. Very, very busy, quite sort of aggressive vibe to that roundabout. It's a huge roundabout.
Aggressive
and
vibe.
For some reason, at the traffic lights coming onto the roundabout, I decided this was a good time to light a cigarette.
You ticked
off the lighter in the car for some reason, which I wouldn't normally do, because I think this is sort of, in the general scheme of things, this sounds ridiculous, but I always thought it was a bit manky. You don't want to damage, you don't want to use the lighter in the car, because then it's obviously used. Don't know why I cared. Not my car, not her car, even. But I used the lighter, and then the lights went green, set off, fumbled putting the lighter back, and it fell down between the seat and the centre. Now, the mad panic.
Did it smoulder?
Well, this is the thing, because it's like then I sort of looked down to see if I could see it, because you don't want to just stuff your hand down there, because one end of it is very hot still. But equally, I didn't want to leave it down there because, it could set fire to the car. So I looked down, but of course then I'm on a very, very multi-lane, choppy, changey, wits about you sort of roundabout with a junction out onto the A40 and all sorts, and almost stacked it into the divider between where one slip road went off and the roundabout carried on from looking down. It was a very, very panicky, stressful situation. Thankfully, I went onto the slip road, sort of lurched onto the slip road, and then there's some little pull-ins, and I just pulled in there and sort of jumped from the car and then slammed, almost dived headfirst into the footwell to find this bastard lighter before it burnt my girlfriend's car down. I also once, did I tell you about when I was approaching a roundabout at speed in my Ford Ka, and on the Wilmslow bypass for people who care. And just as I was going up to the roundabout, bit of a lick on, it's a road I know, and that car, had lovely, lovely handling. You could chuck it into roundabout, sort of four-wheel drift it round if there's no one about. And as I approached at speed...
Of course, at speed.
I sneezed and put a massive, that scene in Ghostbusters where Slimer gets them.
Oh, no.
Sort of that across the steering wheel. And
no,
as I entered the roundabout, went to steer and went, I don't want to touch that, and almost just drove straight into the roundabout.
Oh, that's disgusting.
I know, it is revolting.
You had a dirty nose omelette that just came out. Oh,
yes.
Awful.
Exactly that. Delightful. Oh. And on that edifying note, we should bring this to a close, but thank you very much for your questions. Do keep sending them in. hello@smithandsniff.com. We'll answer more next Friday. Normal show on Monday. Until then, goodbye.
Bye, guys. Love you.